So this topic is something we've been thinking quite hard about over the last few months because we're in the lucky position of having a lot of clients that have made that transition. And so what we've done is broken down what are the key shifts we see ecom brands make that makes them able to scale to this level and break through that kind of really important ceiling. How do ecom brands get stuck in the early seven figures? It's something we see a lot where brands will have that they'll break through that kind of initial ceiling and become $1 million brand, but then they'll struggle to push through that ceiling and get to that next level and be a $10 million brand. So we'll cover some of the reasons brands get stuck and some of the challenges we're seeing out in the industry at the moment. So what do we know about this? Who are we in the first place? How are we qualified to talk about this? Well, I'm Jessie. I'm former head of performance marketing for Etsy International, co-founder of Webtopia. Ben, who's my co-presenter today, he's the head of growth at Webtopia and has 6 years of experience growing brands from 7 to 8 figure revenue. He's been there as a kind of co-pilot with a good number of brands who have done this and really seen under the hood of how it's all happened. And collectively, our agency has scaled businesses to over 35 million a year from less than $1 million. So we've seen it all, we've done it all, and we're excited to share with you how we've done it. So why do brands get stuck in the early seven figures? There's lots of reasons, but these are 3 of the reasons that we see at the moment being the challenges that are kind of holding brands back universally. And then I guess, of course, the other reason is them not making the shifts that we're going to talk about. So here are some of the challenges that you might be facing. So this year has been the year of rising CPMs. It has been super challenging out there from a competitive standpoint. Post-COVID, we saw a big spike in CPMs. So CPMs being the cost of delivering ads, the cost of actually advertising on these platforms. But then things kind of like leveled out for a number of years. But then this year has been the year of things rising. I think it's partly to do with Temu being very aggressive. We've got the US election coming. So a number of factors pushing up the CPM. Conversion rates are down across the board generally, again, due to economic challenges out there. I don't know if this is something that other brands who are watching this have seen, but conversion rates generally, because of consumers being a little bit more conservative, are down. So that's another challenge out there. And then, of course, attribution. The more channels you add, the more diverse your marketing mix, the harder it is to attribute and then to know what's actually working and which lever to pull. So those are some of the challenges we see brands facing. So you're not alone if you're facing these. But these shifts we're going to talk about are ways you can combat those.
So CPMs, we're seeing them up in our portfolio at the moment, year over year, by about 10 to 15% on Meta. On TikTok, we're seeing them up quite substantially in the last couple of weeks. That could be down to, I know in the US specifically, that there was a new law passed recently where TikTok has to be sold within a year. Now, I know it won't be sold within a year. It'll have to go through all the different channels and the law and things like that. It'll probably be 3, 4, 5 years at this stage, but that kind of leads to a little bit of uncertainty, you know, within the platform itself. As Jessie kind of touched on as well, the election years are happening at the moment, both in the US and the UK. So that is affecting CPMs. We see it every 4 years or, you know, every number of years when the elections are on. It does have a massive impact on the CPMs, especially the end of each quarter as well. So you might have seen a rise in CPM at the end of March. You'll probably see another one at the end of June as well. And then, you know, after that, kind of going into the start of Q4. So you'll naturally see the rise in CPMs. There are a couple of ways, I suppose, that you can keep the CPMs down. Creative is massive. I'm going to say creative is king. That's going to be a, you know, we've kind of touched on that quite a few times, but audience testing, ad placement, bids and budgets as well. So certain kind of techniques around that, both on Google, Meta and other platforms as well, is massively important to kind of keep those CPMs under control.
Awesome. Yes, it's one of the kind of key areas that we're kind of battling at the moment as an agency, figuring this out for our clients. And we've definitely found those techniques to be really effective at kind of putting us on a better keel than some of the competitors out there. Cool. Okay, so the first shift that we believe a ecom brand who wants to push through the 7-figure mark is know your numbers. Now, what does this mean exactly? It's not about just like roughly knowing, you know, what your ROAS is or what your target is. It's about really deeply getting to know your numbers. So over to you, Ben. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so CAC is obviously massively important. CAC is your overall top line business, you know, cost to acquire a new customer. If it's too low, it might affect you from scaling, because if your CAC goal is low, it means that you know, it's harder to find people. You're not really breaking into new niches, And it's quite the contrary when it's too high, then you're kind of being a little bit too loose with it. You're breaking into niches that you maybe don't want to be in, or maybe just one and dones, not necessarily kind of your target market. So there is kind of like a fine line between that. The more data you have, the easier it is to kind of qualify that. But yeah, each brand will differ on that. And just kind of going into the numbers then, Jessie, for like, so if you're looking to get into early seven figures, so for the year, just to break that down into numbers. So that's about 100,000 a year and say 100,000 a month in sales. That's about 3,000 a day. If your AOV is of $100, that's 30 sales a day. If you have about a 20% returning customer rate, which on average is about what our clients at the moment have, that's 6 returning customers, that's 24 new sales a day. So are you spending to the level at the moment to get on average 24 sales a day? Now, not every day will be 24. You'll have certain days are 29, certain days are 22, but on average, are you spending enough to get to your 24 sales a day for new customers to reach that goal? So everybody has the aspirations to reach 7, 8, 9 figures, but are you spending enough to get to that? Again, it might be a short-term loss for a long-term gain here. And are you spending enough at the moment to get there?
So it's interesting, isn't it? When you look at $1 million a month, which is just over what you need to get to 8 figures, that's you're going to need to be making 30,000 a day, making 300 sales a day, having 60 return customers a day, and 240 new sales a day. So really digging into those numbers and what that actually means before you head towards it is really key. And then working out, okay, so if I need this many new customers, what can I afford to pay to acquire those new customers? What's the absolute most I can afford without going into negative profit and without being so conservative that actually it's not possible for my media buyer to achieve it? So yeah, really running the numbers there is super important. The other point is about how you can increase your LTV and how that impacts your numbers overall.
Yeah, absolutely. So some brands maybe a one and done, and it's just kind of building out that initial purchase. Can you do a pre-purchase upsell and things like that? But looking at our LTV, like there's a supplements brand that we work with at the moment, and we were running into an issue where there was, a person coming once a month to come and buy rather than signing up to a subscription. So what we did was we started implementing a 30% pre-purchase flow where it was giving 30% off for a sign up of 3 to 12 months. So increasing that lifetime value of that customer instead of being, not knowing when they're coming back from month to month, to kind of nail them down to a 3, 6, 12-month subscription. Also, another great one to do is we're seeing it, especially in the fashion industry, is when you're releasing new products, it's sending out emails being like, this product works really well with the product you brought previously, and having that segmentation done within the back end of your Klaviyo and sending it out. So if you bought this top before, these trousers will work lovely with it, and really kind of styling it up for them. And then, building a community as well, massively important. We're seeing it become more and more important. The community itself can almost be treated as a micro platform. We saw one of the brands we're working with at the moment, and we discovered who the most influential people were in this micro community. We started dropping the products to them early, and it almost advertised to themselves, and it created intrigue, created FOMO, and the lifetime value of the people that were in that community started growing massively because of this. So it's really kind of, you spend enough to get these people in the first place. So let's try and make sure that we're maximizing the LTV of these people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So if the ad costs are rising across the board, 10 or 15% that we've seen, you're going to have to pay more to acquire that customer generally. We can work on the creative, we can do things to lower it as much as we can, but acquiring a customer, there's no way around it. It's going to cost more. But if you can double or triple the lifetime value of your customer, then you can afford to pay that extra to acquire that customer, still remain competitive, and still be profitable. So everything ties together. And again, that's why knowing your numbers and what you really can afford to acquire that customer is going to make all the difference to your ability to actually scale when the time comes. So yeah, quick summary there. Get to know your CAC and COGS and everything in between. Make sure you're spending at the right level. Goes without saying. Measure the ratio of in-platform CPAs to overall CAC. So if you have a target customer acquisition cost in mind, we all know the platforms will over attribute to themselves, or there'll be some cross attribution. Google will be saying they acquired a customer and Meta will be saying they acquired the same customer. But if you can understand the ratio of how much it costs you in platform, what the in platform data is telling you, and what that kind of ends up being as your overall CAC, then you can have a really clear target for your Meta and Google campaigns or TikTok or wherever else that ends up delivering on the overall CAC that you need. So again, looking at those ratios between your platform data and your real data are really important. And again, benchmark what's your LTV now, and then start testing things. And we'll talk more about testing in a little bit, testing things to increase your LTV over time. So don't worry about what everyone else's LTV is, worry about what yours is and how can you improve it for your brand. Oh, number two, the second shift we need to make is systematic testing across the whole business. So this is a whole mindset, a way of thinking. We're saying here 10x your testing. So however much you're testing now, you should probably be testing a lot more than what you are now. So some of the things we talk about testing.
It's massively important to have a bit of a system behind it and not just be guessing. Yes, everybody can pump out a lot of creative all the time, but it's actually having the knowledge behind it of what to do with it. So I suppose there's a couple of different ways, like interviewing the customers, right? So understanding what the customers are thinking of your product, what they want from you in the future, that can play into your testing strategy. Analyze and review the data. So not only the data like the click-through rates or hold rates, things like that, but also analyze like ratings, like the comments that are coming through on it, the ratings on your website, map to underlying problems and mass desires. So let them tell you what they're, so people will, we put out an ad recently, and yeah, well, to be honest, I thought it was a really, really nice ad, but all the comments underneath were just screenshotting the eyes of the person in the ad and just commenting on the eyes. So like, again, we took that as feedback and we changed the creative pretty much immediately. But what you might think might be perfect, once it goes out to the people out there, they'll decide and they'll let you know what they like and what they don't like. And then different themes as well. So be it static, be it GIFs, flat lays, on model, off model, whatever it is, just continuously testing new creative themes. And what I'll say on this is, when things are going well, this is when you should be doing the most amount of testing, because that's how you'll keep moving forward in the right direction. So many people I've seen in the past, when things are going well, they're happy just to ride that wave and just, and then all of a sudden things start turning around and going downwards. And that's when they're looking to test the most. You need to test while things are going well. So when it does start turning down, you have these tests to fall back on, these winners from these tests to fall back on. And then when you're starting to have your down period, that's when you start putting back across the board. So trying to get that, I suppose, the mix between it at a good stage as well. When you're looking at your creative, then there's a kind of, this maybe isn't the most aesthetically pleasing way to look at it, but it is quite simplified. So you go out there with two different variants, an ogre and a dragon. You let it spend enough to get statistical significance. You get the winner from that. You try 2 different variations. Again, you allow it to spend, get your statistical significance. And then when you take the winner from that, you start, adapting it to different backgrounds, different borders, and different angles and things like that. So that way you've kind of really tested the method behind it, and it's not just throwing anything out there. Okay, so also another great thing as well is to find the products that work to drive new customers. So a lot of times people will be like, this product here is giving us great ROAS, great returns, keep pushing this. But a lot of the research that we do here in Webtopia is we kind of try to dig down into these products and understand, okay, maybe this one isn't giving us the best ROAS. Maybe, we're just about breaking even or just over breaking even with this. But the person that buys this product comes back 3, 4, 5 times a year compared to the one, that's a little bit better for us. Maybe they only come back once a year. So understanding those different products and what, kind of drives, like, I understand you might have to break even, but understand that you might have to leave a little bit on the table in the first instance to make money over the long term here.
Yeah. So you had a great example of this. So what was it you guys discovered that this particular product was bringing in customers that ended up having a much higher lifetime value than other products as their first product? Have I got that right?
That's correct, yeah. So this was the only size that they did in, I think it was 0 to 6 months old. And while we find that it was just about breaking even, we found that it was a really good feeder product, because once you get them in the door, 0 to 6, they come back 6 to 12 months, 12 to 24 months, 24 to 3 years, etc., etc. And the lifetime value of these people over, 6, 12, 18, 20 months, 24 months, which you kind of have to do in an industry like children's pajamas as they grow up, absolutely exploded. compared to when we were, maybe targeting people that were shopping for 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds, because they were almost one and done at that stage.
Yeah. So you found this kind of viral product that was, even though it was a bit of a loss leader, it wasn't necessarily making a lot of money on that first purchase. By promoting that product the most often, you were bringing in really high value customers. That's so cool. And what about the sister coin example there?
Sister coin, we found that, a lot of people were buying it. And again, like, it was a really good product for the brand that we're working with, but they were buying it and they were gifting it away. So we did this by asking the audience, what were you doing with it? Why were you buying it? We found out, as I said, they were gifting it to other people. So what we did was we doubled it down. We said, buy one for you and your sister or your friend or whoever it is. And it was sold as one product. All of a sudden you got, an AOV of that was $250, now $400 or $450, whatever it was. But just analyzing what was happening, asking the people what they were doing with it, allowed us to be able to change it to an offering that was now, massively profitable for the company.
So it shows how that deeper understanding of both your data, but also your customer themselves and how they're using your product can lead to insights that can massively scale a business quite quickly. So having that kind of curious mind about what else can we test, what else can we look at, is what can really unlock success. Some other places you can be testing, I'll just run through this. So, you shouldn't just be testing your creative or which products you're advertising. When you are a testing mindset business, you should be having tests running, in lots of different places in the business, so you can incrementally improve all over the place. So your product pages, you should be testing how can you improve those and improve the conversion rate on those. Your homepage, that's an area that you should be testing. You shouldn't be just, and this is the difference between a 7 and 8 figure brand here. You shouldn't just be making changes based on a whim or a gut feel or a random idea that you've had down the pub. You should be testing the homepage changes based on hypothesis, data, customer interviews, and then you should be making those changes and analyzing the performance of those changes rather than just making changes and walking away. Landing pages as well. So for some brands, sending traffic directly to a product page works, but for other brands, sending it to a landing page, which is carefully designed and includes certain elements to help people understand the product and the offer. So that's something you could be testing within the checkout. So, moving things around and testing how that's set out, and also what you're adding in there. So like, are you adding a pre-purchase bump, a post-purchase bump, etc. Email flows, you should be testing, you can set your email flows up, your welcome series, your post-purchase flow, your abandoned cart, and it can be tempting to just leave that set and forget. But actually, if you go in there and test different elements of that, you can see incremental, if not revolutionary, improvements in your performance from your flows. Campaign emails too. So you're sending your weekly campaigns. Are you testing doing different things in those campaigns to see what impact they have? Subject lines as well can be tested. So there's many, many different places in your business that you can and should be testing if you're wanting to kind of make this big leap in terms of revenue and performance. So your user experience, you want to use data, website visitor recordings to improve that, but also think about the barriers. So what are the barriers that use your customer insights to figure out what are the barriers that are stopping people from buying? What are their typical objections? What are their worries about your product? What are their fears? And make sure you're addressing those. And then transformation. So what is the transformation that your product achieves for this customer in their life? And you might think, well, my product's not transformational, but even fashion, even jewelry, it's a change of mind state or emotion from how they're feeling now to how they want to feel when they have the product. So make sure you're addressing that. Those are kind of 3 areas you can think about for testing changes to your site that could make a big difference. Number 3, Ecomm brands as content houses. So what do we mean by this? So something I've really noticed, the difference between Ecomm brands that are really like taking huge strides and scaling within our portfolio and the ones that are sort of at a bit of a standstill, or ones that I speak to who haven't been able to scale. The ones that are really able to scale are the ones that are seeing themselves as a business that is a content production house as well as a product house, right? So the earlier stage Ecomm brand thinks, well, I just need to make great products and create new products and innovate. But the really fast-moving brands are realizing they need to create products and they need to create content. They need to have a system within their business for creating social content, email content, blog content, ad content, and that needs to be it needs to be something that's not an afterthought. It's not random. It's not happening from time to time. It's happening all the time across your business.
Content is very much how you put yourself out there in front of people. Are you going to put yourself as an educational content out there? You're providing value, information, insights related to your industry, your products, or your niche. This can include like how-to guides, tutorials, product demonstrations, and educational articles. So if that's what you're looking to do, educational content is great. And if it kind of fits in with your niche, that'd be fantastic as well. Inspiring stories. Some of the brands are really inspiring stories with regards. We work with a brand that's a charity-based brand, and they share success stories, testimonials, case studies from their satisfied customers as well. And they push this out as content, which is really, really good. User-generated content. So a lot of people, like, I've seen enough of it by now, but I can kind of sense when it's fake user-generated content and when it's actual authentic user-generated content. Like, ask your customers what you feel, how they're feeling about your product. You'll see it in your reviews on your website. You can do a post-purchase survey. People will automatically, tag you in things. You use this. This is genuine UGC, and it can be a lot of people can see the difference between real and fake. And it's important to really get some, UGC that's real out there for you. And then interactive content as well. And one that kind of pops into mind here is one of the brands that we worked with was a furniture company, and they were struggling big time with regards to getting, AOVs of $2,000 plus £2,000. And what they were struggling people, it was great people were window shopping, but they weren't able to visually, know what it looked like. So they were able to have interactive content where they were able to put the sofa or the bed in the room on the site and things like that, which was really, really, game changing for them when they started bringing it into their website. AI is obviously massively important. There's a shoe company that we work with, and there's an app install where you can, once you're shopping for your shoe, you can point the camera of your phone to your shoe and it'll tell you what size shoe you are in that specific brand. That's AI. But also within creative, we're seeing the use of AI generated images.
I've got an example here.
Yeah, which again just allows for us to be able to churn out this high quality imagery and create content for our clients at the moment. So embrace AI. Don't see it as a threat.
So a few examples from some of our brands using their customer content. So one of just a little kind of tactical tip I would give, if you're not doing this, make sure your post-purchase flow is requesting a video review or some kind of content from your customers. So it means that instead of it happening every now and again when you think of it, it's happening on automatic. And test different incentives, right? So some people will do it just for 10% off or just for the love of your brand, but you'll get more responses if you get that incentive right, whether it's a discount or a voucher or some other incentive that they get for sharing that content. So make sure that's kind of automatic. So you're automatically collecting that and you've got that content ready to share whenever you need it. Content checklist. So one of the things, I put this together recently for a brand and I thought it was worth sharing. So I think this applies whether you're talking about organic content or paid social content. Like, these are some good rules to follow. So strong 3-second hook. Grab people's attention in that first 3 seconds. That's your moment to give them a reason to watch you. Fast cuts. So I saw recently a stat that said that feature films now only have every shot is an average of 4 seconds long. That's feature films. So imagine our phone content. People are expecting to see cuts every few seconds. So make sure you've got fast cuts, not so fast that they can't follow and they feel sick, but fast cuts. Designed for sound off, delight with sound on. So imagine half your audience is watching it with the sound off, half with sound on. Make sure it's as good an experience for both. Varied scenes, B-roll where possible. So, make sure there's lots of interest. Make sure your music is synced up to the visuals. Try and think about how can I be more entertaining or more funny. Include social proof. This is especially true for ads, but also for your organic content. And think about making it more relatable than polished. So I'd rather you do 3 or 4 really relatable videos than one perfect video. It's probably going to work better, be watched more, and actually drive action more than something that's super polished and perfect. And emotion. So think about how can we push triggers of emotion with our ads, whether it's triggering feelings of excitement or happiness or overcoming frustration. Like, make sure your ads and your content in general makes people feel something, because that's going to resonate more and make them feel more connected to your brand and more likely to take action. On to number 4. So number 4, horizontal scale. So I was going to say 10x your channels, but I think that's probably a little bit too onerous. So we said 5x your channels. So if you want to grow to 8 figures, you can't just rely on, I'm just going to mute someone there. You can't just rely on just Meta or Google. You probably will need to go beyond those core channels. We definitely recommend starting with them in most cases, but horizontal scale is going to require you to do a whole lot more other channels. So do you want to talk us through that, Ben?
Absolutely, yeah. So I suppose when people are looking at a goal, they're looking at their 1 million a month or their 1 million overall. And they're kind of thinking, if we put more spend behind the channels that we're running, we'll get there. And, in some cases that's true, but it's very important not to be over-reliant on any single platform at the moment, because we're seeing so many bugs across all the different platforms. I remember a couple of months ago in Meta where there was a cost cap or a big cap within basically telling the platform how much you want to spend to get a new customer, completely ignoring them for about 24 hours and spending thousands and thousands of dollars of people's money without getting any sales. So you need to make sure that you're not being overly dependent. I understand that you might be search dominant or social dominant, but there's a couple of different platforms there. Like in search, you can look at your Google, your Bing, your Amazon, and social, you've got your TikTok, your Pinterest, your Metas, things like that. It's important to grow horizontally that way as well. It's about the demand creation and demand capture, whether your niche fits into both of those, or if it fits into one, and kind of build out the channels that you're serving ads on your search or your social side of things. Another way to look at it then is to diversify your product range by introducing complementary or related products that appeal to your target market. That sounds pretty simple and basic, but you'd be amazed by how many people don't do this. If you for example, that sister coin that I was talking about earlier on, what we suggested with the brand is we start building out very, very similar coins to that have subsequently done very, very well. Conducting market research to identify the gaps in your product offerings. So let the people tell you. I've said that a couple of times now in this presentation, but you can do a lot of guesswork, but you can also just ask the customers, what they're looking for, maybe a product that they would like to see. It's massively powerful. And then also partnering with other brands. Yes, people do influencer collaborations and things like that, but identifying brands that are in that niche with you, maybe that aren't direct competitors, but you complement each other very, very well. It's massively important to kind of reach out to those and look to do some partnering there, because you open up new audiences as well, get in front of new eyeballs, which is, again, horizontally scaling.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jessie.
No, I was going to just butt in there with one little comment, which was, when we talk about horizontal scale, it can mean multiple channels. It can be, talking about adding additional paid channels, but also within an ad account. So if we take the example of Meta, a simple account might have 1 or 2 campaigns and 1 or 2 different ad styles that are working. A big account that's able to scale is able to reach different types of customers in lots of different ways. So a fully horizontally scaled ad account might have an Advantage Plus campaign. It might have a bid cap campaign. It might have a standard, CBO campaign. Within that, we might have different themes. So we might have ads that are targeting different personas, one ad for yoga mums, one ad for soccer dads, another ad for, single parents, whatever it might be, the different personas that appeal to your product. And then within those, you might also have different ad types. So you might have, UGC style ads that work really well for some portions of your audience. You might have static ads or AI ads that work for other portions of your audience. You might also be targeting email capture. So you're getting more people onto your email list who don't convert straight away, but you can nurture them over time, those people that take a little bit longer to decide. You might also be using different objectives. When you're fully scaled to a multiple 7-figure or 8-figure brand, you probably do need to do maybe a little bit of your budget towards brand awareness or video views, so that you're opening up that funnel. So as this point here, so we've got to focus on demand creation at the top of the funnel and also demand capture. So making sure that, we've got the retargeting, we've got the ads to kind of retain people and get them back. But that's what a fully horizontally scaled ad account looks like. And then you apply that to every channel and you can see how that's where you're starting to become a really big brand that can scale. So yeah, not to put too fine a point on it, horizontal means a lot of things. And I think it's when a brand becomes too much of a one-trick pony that they can get stuck and not able to scale, because they're doing the same kind of ads, the same kind of setup, one or two channels.
Yeah.
And international, yes.
So we're looking at, looking into new geographical markets. So those are in the UK, maybe looking to break into Europe or the US and vice versa. One of the things I'd say when you're doing that is just be aware that the markets react completely different. For example, if you're moving into the US customer base love free shipping. It's a no. If you don't have free shipping, it does affect your conversion rate. We have seen in the past, and what we generally do to get around that is we start sinking the price of shipping into the product price, so it doesn't necessarily affect your overall business, but you're offering free shipping as well. Also, different hooks and different language being used as well. So people in the UK tend to buy into brands a lot more than the US, and people in the US relate a lot more to urgency. So understanding the different geographical markets that you're moving into and speak to the people that are in there.
But the first, just quick summary of is, firstly, understand those numbers on a much deeper level, really dig into what CAC you can afford and how you can increase the LTV. Test, you need to 10x how often you're testing and what you're testing, and make sure you have a testing plan for basically every aspect of your business. Creative and content is king and queen. So, creating UGC content, creating content with your customers, being a production house rather than just creating content as an afterthought. And finally, horizontally.
I think we lost Jessie. Just to finish that off then, horizontally scaling as the last one.